I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning and happy spring, everyone. John, do we have any public comments, or Bruce, any?
None so far. None online.
For the first part here, all right. Seeing none. Everyone has a copy of the meeting minutes for review. Do I have a motion to approve, adjust? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jackson. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes have been approved. Ms. Brinster. Whoops. We have some extension requests to deal with first thing this morning. Major site plan 05-10-02-0005, Kent Narrows Hospitality Inc. Holiday Inn Express. Addition, the applicant is seeking to add 25 rooms to the hotel, and they are requesting a one-year extension. DMS is roofs, and Ms. Hoffman have.
I'm gonna turn it over to Victoria. She knows more about what's been going on with the hotel industry and the pandemic and what have you. So I think her letter was pretty self-explanatory. I remember coming here and Mr. Priest asked, what happens if the pandemic closes things down? And Jim pretty much said, well, we may be back. So
Here we are, right?
Here we are. So, I mean, Victoria, you can tell everybody what's going on.
Am I allowed to take this off, or do you have to put yours on? Hi, everybody. Well, I didn't expect to be back. But as you know, a week after we met, maybe the week we met last year, they shut everybody down. So practically, IHG also shut down, our franchisor, and all of their departments. So they didn't even come back and inspect our work we had finished last year. They still haven't been back. So they're closed, and any plan, our plan is essentially closed along with them for now. So we don't know when to hear. We'll expect to hear from them. Of course, coupled with that, we also don't know what to expect out of, the market now, too. I mean, I anticipate moving forward, but if something were to change drastically in the market or doesn't recover as quickly as we hope, we might have to have another discussion, I guess. But for right now, it looks okay. Like things are opening up, so we are hopeful that people will travel, and I think people can do it safely, especially regionally. So, people who maybe otherwise would be traveling by plane might just zip on over, which is nice. So we'll see how it goes.
I would add that since the original approvals in 2010, there's been really no changes in the county code or critical areas regulations that would affect the approval that we have. They paid their sewer allocation, so that's all locked in. I think we submitted sureties for all the stormwater management and sediment control, so all of that is in. And we had actually applied for a grading permit, and we may have had the pre-application meeting, but things have just kind of snowballed here late. So, but as for your consideration for a year, and then hopefully things will change, as Victoria said. So, who knows?
And the county has nothing to add, Mr. Gunzer? Anyone have a motion they'd like to make in response to this applicant's request for site plan extension?
I'll make a motion that we grant their request for extension of site plan 05-10-02-0005-C for 1 year, which would extend this approval till March of 2022.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Ebersberger, thank you. Motion, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. You too.
Can you fix that television next time?
You can blame it on your son. Right. Next, major site plan extension request for Economy Tree Service, SP 19-9-0037. Economy Tree is proposing to remove an existing structure and in its place construct a 7,200 square foot building with an office and storage. The applicant is requesting a 3-month extension. DMS and Associates, once again. Mr. Roy, good morning.
Yeah, we've requested just the minimum.
Sorry, Brandon, would you just identify yourself?
I'm sorry,
please?
Brandon Davis with DMS and Associates. I have with me Jim Roy with Economy Tree Service. We're here today to request just the minimum 3-month extension to the Planning Commission approval that was granted in September. We asked just for the minimum, just for a couple additional months to complete the processing. In the meantime, since Planning Commission approval, we had a couple minor comments to address. We've worked with the planning staff and the permit staff to get architectural building code reviews in advance and work through some interior architecture, minor, things. We've got SCS approval, Health Department approval on sign plans, and it took a little while just to get the sureties and the fees all worked up and cost estimates approved. So we've actually submitted our signature plan set to the Department of Public Works with those sureties and fees that go along with that. As soon as we get that signature, you'll see it here at Planning Commission or Planning and Zoning Office for that final signature. So the 3 months is just a little extra window to get those signatures in here.
You're comfortable with the 3 rather than a 6?
Right, yeah, once I confirmed with Jim that those sureties would be to me any day, we were comfortable with just 3.
Okay. Anything to add, Mr. Gunther?
No, other than this is a minor site plan, but due to its location, it had to come to the Planning Commission. So otherwise, this project wouldn't even be in for an extension. So we have.
Because it's right on 50.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because of the location
Yep.
right along Route 50. We have no objection.
Do we have a motion for Economy Tree Service extension request?
I move that we grant a 3-month extension for site plan SP 19-09-0037.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Second was by Mr. Ebersberger. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Is this what having a baby's like?
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. The third extension has been removed from the agenda as per adjustments. Up next is legislation and legal updates by Mrs. Moordock
Stephanie's gonna.
and Ms. Jones. Good morning.
Yep, good morning. So I'll let Stephanie start with a legislative update, and then I will bump miscellaneous staff items up and just give you all of our staff reports at once.
Good morning. So the first 10 days in February is when citizens can submit text amendments. So we received 3.
Could you come up closer to the mic, really?
Yeah, maybe just bend it down, Stephanie. Yeah.
Is that better?
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we received 3 last month. So they will be before the commissioners on March 23rd, I believe, for them to convey it back to you for recommendation. So you should see them next month for Planning Commission for a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners.
And then, like I did last month, giving you an update about the renovation to the Chick-fil-A, just so that you will see it happening and wonder why you didn't have that project for review on your agenda. I have another one, and I think I've mentioned it before, but the Target store is starting its renovation process. Now, this did not qualify for a site plan review because it's a straight renovation. There is going to be some change to that outdoor garden center area where there'll be a pickup and drop-off section, but that all of the renovation fell beneath the threshold of needing to get a formalized site plan review. It's really just a building permit, remarkably, because there's no change to the square footage of the floor area. So we did receive the renovations permit, so you should start to see some activity out there, and that's kind of exciting.
As a reminder for viewers and others less familiar with the conversation thus far, this is the old Kmart building by Route 18 and Bay Bridge. And so what we expect to see, Amy, is facade changes and mostly internal construction, right? No expansion of the footprint.
You're exactly correct.
That's what a
And
straight review
thanks
means?
Thank
That's
you
okay.
for contextualizing. I should have done that. So there is a major renovation indoors. But external renovations are minimum. There will be facade changes, and those facade changes were reviewed for compliance with the design standards in the town center district, and urban commercial. So what you will see is compliant in terms of those district standards and is all covered under a renovation permit. So
That's expected this season?
Yeah, definitely. You should see construction happening this spring. So there'll be a lot of activity on that site. So. And just one more staff update, and that is we've had 2 planner vacancies. We've had our long-range senior planner has become vacant because Stephanie has been promoted to our principal planner's position. And that we have found a really great candidate, and that candidate will be starting on the 31st of March. And likewise, Rob has had a vacancy in his camp for a development review county planner, and we found another really great candidate, and we're excited to say they're both starting on the same day, on the 31st of March. So that's really good
Your
news. And
team will be
hopefully we're getting
fully
there.
complemented now? Yeah.
That's right, and we have one more position that we're looking for. And then there are 2 positions on the permitting end that we're just looking at applications right now and should be interviewing for a permit technician supervisor and a permit technician 1. And so I'll update you as we move through that process. So,
I'm sure the economy would love to welcome a few more jobs to the county's roster.
that's true.
As well as the obvious help that you've been seeking.
Yeah, definitely. And really, since the pandemic began, the building permits have really blossomed. There are a lot of building permits, a lot of residential projects, additions and renovations. So there's a lot of work for the permit tech staff to do and our inspectors. So they've been very busy. So they're going to welcome we had a vacancy and a supervisory position that has been vacant. So.
These permits, are they mainly renovation type or are they new permits for homes?
They're largely renovations and additions. Yep. But some new single families as well. Yep. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is a comprehensive plan workshop. I see Mr. Morbeck in the back from Wallace Montgomery to lead the commission in a comprehensive plan work session, including the status update and review of transportation draft chapters. Good morning.
Good morning. And we have Lauren Good as well as joining us virtually.
Oh, okay.
Lauren, I'll share it to give her the sympathy. Lauren broke her leg last week.
Oh, jeez.
So she's unable to put weight, so she's joining us virtually today, but by the next workshop, she will be here in person.
A little more mobile next time.
So please, patience as we work through just getting us rolling with everything on.
Sure. Would you like a few moments to bring Ms. Good on board, or are you capable to start and have her join, or what would you like to?
Lauren will be starting the presentation, so if we're able to get her up, she should be online now.
Okay.
Yeah, she is on. She's in our meeting. Are you there, Lauren?
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
And I'll be handling the PowerPoint stuff from here, but just to get that started.
Thanks so much, Ray. My name, as everyone mentioned, is Lauren Good, and I am the project manager for the comprehensive plan update. Thank you for allowing me to join virtually. As Ray mentioned, I am a little bit limited with my mobility the past few days, but looking to have that speedy recovery and get back in front of you as soon as possible. So for today, and Ray, you have the
Yes.
PowerPoint up. Great, thank you. Today, as mentioned, we are going to be providing a status update as well as discussing the draft transportation chapter that was provided to all of you in your packets. The first update that we wanted to give is on our recent project outreach efforts. Which, since we were before you last month, we held the 5th of our 5 visioning workshops. That one focused on the countywide issues as well as North County. We also held 2 of our 8 special topic workshops. Those included the second one on the environment and transportation, and then last week we held one on historic and cultural resources. We have 8 special topic workshops planned in total, and those That schedule should have been included in your packet and is also on the project website. In addition to those two workshop components, we've also been holding a number of technical committee meetings. These are attended by our consultant team as well as various members of county staff. So again, since the last time we met, we had 2 meetings focusing on the environment and transportation. And then we have some upcoming special topic workshops and technical committee meetings occurring next week as well. So those will continue for the next several weeks. In addition to those different workshops and meetings, we have developed various hard copy presentations and made those available on our website and to the county for anyone wishing to have hard copies in advance of the meetings. We have been coordinating with Beth Molaski on a number of social media posts and updates to press releases and items on the county's website, as well as sending out a number of email updates to those that are part of our, who have signed up for our list of updates on the project as a whole. And we've been very successful with the interactions we've had on our project website. We've actually had almost 40 new users since we met with you last month. We've had over 2,700 total page views. So lots of people are interested in what's going on and they are checking in to see what's going on with the project. While there have been a number of direct hits to that website, we're also seeing a large influx of people joining from, say, Facebook or doing Google searches or through the county website. So it's interesting to see where people are joining that website from. And then the chart on the right side of that screen, you'll see are the number of responses to the questions of the week that we've been proposing. As you'll recall, these questions focus on a different topic area every week, and depending on that topic area, we're getting back a number of different responses. So those topics have been things like reactions to the pandemic, park and rec facilities, general related to the vision, transportation, the environment, historic preservation, and housing. So we've been having in general about 20 or more responses, again, depending on respondents' interests. And since we are focusing on transportation for this meeting, we wanted to provide some information about those questions of the week. So one of them was related to what respondents think should be the county's highest priorities related to transportation. As you can see here, respondents noted that over half of respondents noted that the priorities should relate to maintaining or repairing existing roads and bridges, as well as reducing traffic congestion, and slightly less responses for providing more sidewalks or bike lanes. Those topic areas coincide very closely with the responses that we received during the various public workshops. So it's good to see that connection in responses. The second question related to transportation is just trying to get a gauge of if there was normal traffic, so no backups or not in a sort of the pandemic nature where traffic is potentially moving a little bit more freely. So assuming that normal traffic, how long would it take people to get to work or school? About a third of respondents said 15 to 30 minutes, while slightly less than that said 15 minutes or less. And then the third largest component were retired, so not having to travel to work or school. In addition to those questions, we asked a few just to get some additional sense of people's thoughts on transportation. One of those was about the number of vehicles in households. And most respondents noted that they had 2 vehicles while others had somewhere between 1 and 4. Not that many of those are hybrid or electric. Only 3 respondents noted that they had hybrid or electric vehicles, and of those 3 respondents, there were a total of 4 vehicles. We also asked a question about whether people would consider using autonomous vehicles or the driverless cars. Those responses were almost half of people said that they would need more info, which makes sense since we haven't been seeing too many of those quite yet. And about a third said that they would not consider those types of vehicles, while about 20% noted that they would. So just something to think about when we are considering future transportation uses throughout the county. And then, in addition to those questions of the week, which have a smaller number of respondents, we also performed a community survey at the start of the comprehensive planning process, and several questions had components of transportation, so those are reflected here. One was on the importance of transportation to quality of life, where parking availability was noted as being important or very important, as well as walkability and the transportation options. And then when thinking about future development, those same similar thoughts were noted on transportation's importance to future development. While the overall network was deemed as very important, there was less emphasis placed on parking availability, while walkability fell in between those two. And then another question was asked about what role Queen Anne's County officials should play related to transportation. And almost 90% of respondents noted that the county officials should be basically encouraging sufficient road capacity, and then the same number also encouraging the network's proximity to emergency facilities, as well as response times. And then the last question in that survey that related to transportation was what has transportation's impact been on development? So as you can see here, there's a very few, less than 10% of respondents noted that there's been a positive or very positive impact, while overwhelmingly over 75% noted that there's been negative or very negative impacts due to development's traffic. We next wanted to give a brief update on the few workshops that have occurred since we were last with you. One of those was the 5th visioning workshop. Again, this one focused countywide as well as on North County, and there were a number of opportunities discussed, such as agriculture and agriculture-related tourism, using natural resources within the county as an economic driver, and then ensuring that there are skilled jobs and technology training to try to keep some of those jobs within the county, as well as noting that solar power was a potential opportunity for the county in the future. Challenges definitely included the development pressure both within the county as well as coming from the outside, the lack of consistent telecommunications connectivity, particularly broadband or high-speed internet, the effects of sprawl due to US 301 and some of the development that is occurring in Delaware, needing some additional housing options, litter, property maintenance, a lack of public water access, and the impacts of sand mining operations. And some of the ideas put forward from that were for the county to commit to resiliency, providing connections for a countywide trail, adding to those public water access points, looking into the stormwater management practices, a large number of discussions about development on Kent Island, as well as the potential for US 301's designation as an agricultural scenic byway, education on farming and training to get the next generation interested in that type of job, as well as ensuring equity for all of those within the county. And some of those ideas are items that Ray will touch on a little later on in the presentation. Our special topic workshop on the environment highlighted the county's farms and forests as assets, while noting that needs were related to preserving more forests, providing stream buffers, not only preserving but stewarding the land that is preserved, and then taking account of the economic benefits related to, say, hunting and fishing. And some recommended goals or actions were related to increasing access to those natural resources, promoting stewardship, educating while enjoying the environment, and some of those other items that we've already discussed. And then that list to the right really outlines the resources that are most important to protect. So quite a few there, ranging from agricultural lands to water, soils, and everything else in between. The next special topic workshop that we held was related to transportation, and the county's trails were really those that were discussed as being an asset to the community. And some of the needs that were highlighted were multimodal transportation, or those transportation avenues that are different from vehicular transportation, needing some more frequent bus service, pedestrian connectivity, particularly through the Kent Island area. And if those are going on, retrofitting the areas with some more best practice stormwater management efforts. And then certainly the largest discussion surrounded the Bay Bridge and related transportation issues. So the goals or actions that were recommended were a discussion of a more directed transportation plan, trying to identify some dedicated funding sources for all of the different transportation efforts, ensuring that the infrastructure is in place before new development goes in, extending trails, public water access, and then perhaps forming a transportation subcommittee that would look at all of these items in more detail. Again, a lot of these are items that Ray will be discussing in just a few moments. And then just as a reminder for those three slides that we just went through, it was just a really briefly touching on those different workshops that we have held in your packages. In our attachments A and B, there are much more descriptive discussions of the content from those meetings, and that information has also been made available on the project website. So moving into the discussion on Chapter 6, this slide just really outlines the contents of that draft chapter. Similarly with the other chapters, this discusses the vision, key issues, and themes related to transportation, as well as guiding principles and legislation surrounding that topic. There's a brief overview, again, of public input, which for all of those public input sections, we will continue to update those throughout the process until the final public input sessions are concluded. We also discussed transportation connections and how transportation relates to not only land use, but economic development and other areas. And then we get into really the meat of the chapter by providing background information on the overall roadway system and its different components, discussing non-automotive facilities. So those are everything from sidewalks and bikeways to the railroad and freight to the airport and all other non-vehicular methods of transportation. That transitions into a discussion of network improvements. So really what has been done and what is planned for the overall transportation network, and then talks about some of the various organizations and resources related to transportation that are found both within the county and available from outside the county. And then discussion on some best management practices, tools, and techniques related to transportation, culminating in the number of goals, strategies, and actions that were developed as part of this process. To develop this chapter, we first began by incorporating a number of new resources that have been made available since the 2010 plan's adoption. And those include items such as the Kent Island Transportation Plan, the Beach to Bridge Traffic Plan, County Rides Transit Development Plan, connectivity and safety recommendations made by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the airport's environmental assessment, the most recent CTP priority letter that was sent to the Maryland Department of Transportation, and then of course the draft Bay Crossing Study EIS that was recently released. In addition to those resources, we updated the statistics and information, trying to make the what was included in the plan more current, and then also included some of the discussions that we heard both from the public during our visioning sessions, as well as from the discussions that we had with the technical committee. This chapter is still under review by members of the technical committee, so there will be some revisions to it, but we definitely wanted to begin getting your feedback on it before we make the next round of revisions to it. And with that, I will turn it back over to Ray, who, if you advance the slides a little bit, we listed out a number of key issues that were expressed during those public input sessions, as well as the technical committee meetings, and that evolved from our analysis, our transportation analysis, and he is going to lead you in some discussion of these issues.
Thank you, Lauren. And before we get into the key issues for discussion, I guess, it's a lot of Lauren putting the information in front and sort of updating where we are. But I just do want to ask if there's any questions as it comes to any of the outreach efforts that have happened to date, things we're hearing, or some of the initial things she started on transportation before we really get into the discussion here. But just want to give you guys that opportunity for any questions, particularly on the outreach part up front, and then we'll get into really a lot of the discussion here on transportation for this chapter.
Continue.
Okay, hearing none, I will continue. And we know it is a big issue, and make it a little light. I appreciate the ability to drive over today in 70-degree weather than snow and ice like the last two planning commission meetings. So a lot more pleasant out there today. But we know there's a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities associated with transportation within the county, and we want to make sure that gets captured and included within the plan update here. And of course, to start that, we've gotten a lot of good feedback from the visioning sessions and the input we've received there on these issues. And of course, we've gotten input from the technical committee as well that are all coming into here. What we wanted to highlight here were a couple of those few items for discussion, sort of wanting to hear some of the Planning Commission's thoughts on those items because they are relevant and will play key roles as what gets put together really in the strategies and goals moving forward as part of this chapter. And of course, we can't start this discussion without having is on a lot of people's minds right now, particularly with the release of the Tier 1 DEIS for the Chesapeake Bay Crossing study that MDTA is conducting for the Maryland Department of Transportation. And not only that study and what it means, but we also know there's a lot of issues with even the existing configuration of how the bridge is and the related transportation issues associated with that. So we wanted to start with that discussion. We know there's a number of things from the existing facility, the concern of cut-through traffic in the neighborhoods when the bridge gets backed up, the seasonal traffic delays that happen, which also feeds to that, the ability for north-south movements to a degree as part of that, some more on the pedestrian. We're hearing a lot more on the pedestrian bike side, particularly for that to allow that connectivity, as well as some of the east-west connectivity in that area that all gets associated with it. And we've heard that on both sides, one from a vehicular movement side, but a lot from the trail and pedestrian connectivity end of it, which is really, people are seeing this as their neighborhoods and how can I get to there without having to go out onto 50 or across 50 and then back over, and how can we improve that? So those are some things. And we do put out there with the Tier 1 NEPA study and what that may mean should the ultimate determination be for a new crossing in the current location, and what that then means to the county. And there's a lot of elements of not only just the structure itself, but of course the infrastructure within the county and how that will be configured. And county staff has identified, and we have in the chapter, of course, the critical importance for the need for communication and coordination with the Department of Transportation and MDTA for that, and what it means not just for the US 5301, but what it means associated with that and the effects to transportation on the island and the county itself. And as Lauren mentioned, not only does that issue feed there also, of course, is the pressure that is happening from the north with the improvements that Delaware has done on 301, and that could be adding additional traffic as well, with a combination of items there. So I guess on that topic, are there particular items that you all would like to raise as it comes to the Chesapeake Bay Crossing for us to take into consideration along with the other comments we're hearing, and particular concerns or issues you may have on that side of it?
Where to start?
Well, my thought is, what if it never happens? What if, I think we need to look at that scenario too. What if it never happens?
I think it's on the list, but it's not a very loud,
No.
but I've seen it, it's always this, or nothing. And so the state, I believe, or get a sense that they're still have that on the table. But I think it's sort of drowned out by the others, but I agree.
I think there's
it's
enough
something for
push.
the
I think it's going to
consultant
happen, though. I think it's not practical.
I think if you look down the line and not very far, in 2 years or so, a change in administration in Annapolis, if there's somebody who has more of a heart for the urban areas than the rural areas, I'm not sure that this is going to be a priority or an expenditure of a lot of money. And I'm not talking about political party, I'm just talking about where does the heart of the administration live, in the urban areas and servicing them, or the rural areas and You just don't know.
And just for, because I know you have a public side with these meetings, just so they understand, this is a Tier 1 NEPA study, which is a corridor identification, and prior to them moving forward with implementing anything, there would be a Tier 2 level, which is more of what the traditional planning is that people see, which would get into the, where is the actual limit of disturbance, where is the, what other improvements are going along with it. That would happen during a Tier 2 stage. Tier 1 sort of addressing it from that broader perspective. So, because I know a lot of people ask that question, well, what's that mean to me? What's that mean to my property? What's that mean to other? That would happen during a Tier 2 stage. And of course, right now, that's not funded for anything to move forward. No one knows exactly what that time frame would be, and it gets into that issue of how it gets added into the program and other things. So I just want to clarify that from a public's perspective as well. Now, if I can ask the question, though, because you said, what if it never happens? Is there anything on the would like to see or not like to see it happen, I guess, from that end? Is there a feeling among, we hear many people that say we'd like to see it, it gives additional capacity, it gets people off the island or, out of the county. But there's also those that don't want to see it because of the concern, the pressures it would have for additional traffic, effect on even more growth pressure and other things. So just curious if there's any thoughts on it. Because these issues, as Lauren mentioned, it's always hard in this because we may speak specific to transportation for this chapter, but there are related effects that are associated with the other chapters as well, and just trying to capture any of those thoughts for those considerations as we're putting the update together.
I think you characterize it very well there, Mr. Moravec, in that, right, we've heard a lot in some of the other revisioning, or at least I personally have heard and read in the comments in your packages, right? We have a lot of contamination is not the right word, but crossing of topics, right? We talk about ag preservation and the need, land preservation in general, right? That goes towards some of these, right? If we protect in perpetuity a property, you can't put a highway through it. Or if we accentuate and bring attention to the ag scenic byways in the fifth bullet there, those things are connected, right? And it also then spills over to the larger topic of the environment, protecting the waterways, the resources, the hunting, the fishing properties. It all gets put into this bucket. But I'm pleasantly optimistic about some of the comments about the walkability, about the connecting the trails and such, because this body, at least historically, has had some development pushback on those amenities. And I think having the public weigh in on that in such a skewed fashion, or at least a volume, loud voice, in some of these public workshops that you've been holding, it gives us some confidence that we as a commission can sort of, put before the development community the public's comments and commentary on, the sidewalks to nowhere that we often hear from some development. That yes, it's literally stops and starts on your property now, but if we don't do it now, when the neighbors develop or we try to connect, it won't ever get connected. So I think that certainly is in here, and it's also nice that people are looking to want to get out and go in their communities on a bicycle, on a golf cart, on their feet, or whatever, not in their car, because local residents are tired of taking an hour to go a half mile on Kent Island on certain circumstances. So I'm glad that people aren't putting their head in the sand, but thinking more sort of the environmental impact of this traffic and mitigating those while still focusing on the ag piece, the scenic piece, the environmental piece. It doesn't make your job any easier at Wallace Montgomery, but that's why we hired you guys, right? So to sort of look at how those pieces are interconnected, I think would be, in a nutshell, what I would say, because there are so many cross-pollinating of topics. I'm babbling now, but that's my comment, my piece for discussion, if you will.
And as you can see, the second bullet there we highlighted was to raise that issue of multimodal connectivity. Lauren mentioned when she started going over the chapter, the various pieces that get into that. We go from everything from freight to airports to, local neighborhood connectivity. And I guess a couple things I want to highlight here, because you do hear a lot of the discussion of what it means on the island and that end of it. But there were a lot of things brought up of the opportunity to get trail connections and other things to other parts of the county. This issue of, and the one below that, even public water access comes up of consideration of, we're starting to see some good trail networks. They're in certain places, but it would be nice to go, from the agricultural area down to, some of the more commercial retail areas, and making sure there's connectivity. Or can we tie that in even to some of the park system or greenway spaces that are allocated so that they could be used for those purposes? So just want to put that out there. That has come up about that from a network perspective as well, not just in a local circulation standpoint. And I know I'm jumping down to a bullet, but to me it relates as the active transportation element. For those who don't know what active transportation is, you see this more and more. It's becoming more of a topic. It's really healthy transportation, active transportation options, which are giving you the abilities within your towns and communities to be able to do activities without, safely walking, having a loop in a town or a community that people can go walk around and take the dog out or whatever and be active, or go running and not have to be on public roads or other things to do it. So you're seeing a lot more people bring those items forward. So it's not just a trail network necessarily, but it's, connecting the school to the neighborhood, to the library, and then they have this sort of active activity health area that they can choose as an option. So something to highlight, and sort of want to see your all opinions on that too. Some of that comes up because of, as we relate between topics also, you see the keeping the small town feel in a lot of the areas around the county. And those are elements that contribute to that small town piece, so.
I think it's worth adding, Mr. Moravec, and putting a little bit more accent on Kathy's comment about what if it does not happen, right? The planning horizon for this document is 10 years. We're not going to have a Bay Bridge inside of 10 years, a third bridge or whatever that might look like. So I think that particular piece that Kathy brought up is given a little more gravity because, again, this document has a lifespan-ish of 10 years, plus minus, right? And it's important to have this in here, right? But we don't have to have what we want the county to look like with this in here necessarily clearly defined, because we don't know what that looks like yet. And the do nothing maybe is not the correct way to message it, but within the horizon of this document, the planning, right, that we're wrapping our head around here collectively, we won't have a Bay Bridge crossing. So how do we prepare for that potential eventuality, and doing so respectfully through all these topics of discussion that we're working through? I think that the more I think about it, the more important that comment becomes, because that's where we are in reality for the life of this document, this update.
Yeah, and I didn't really think about that, but you're right. This is the life of this document is 10 years. And nothing's going to happen in 10 years, even if they made a decision tomorrow. And then there's so much of that that's out of our control. It's out of this county's control, state, federal government. But it's a really touchy topic. But going back to some of the connectivity, the biking and the walking, there are some areas of the county that are just prime for that. And I can think of Graysonville. I live in Queenstown, not, some miles off of Route 18, where you've got some of the Red Apple Plaza, the apartments. You've got the trail that kind of runs along, the other side of it. That's a part of the county that could really benefit from people being able to walk or bike to the Safeway, to the Walgreens, to the pet store, to wherever they need to go. But where the three of us live sitting here, I live 6 miles down a road that even if I walked or biked to the end of it, I've still got a ways to go before I can run any errands, or if I need to go to the emergency room, if I can make it down the street. But So I'd like, I think it would be more efficient to sort of concentrate on places that are optimum for this. I'm sure there are others. I just Graceville because it's familiar to me. But I'm sure there are other, Centerville, and public transportation. From a workforce development side, I'd love to see some type of emphasis on this because sitting on the Economic Development Commission, we hear often of employers, a lot of them at the business park, who would love to have interns, apprentices, the kids who are doing dual enrollment at Chesapeake College and the high schools here need to get back and forth places, and either they're not old enough to drive, they don't have transportation. I'd like to see some expansion of some public transportation, not just for that purpose, but to include that purpose.
The other one we want to put forward, because we know this has come into some of the question, not only from a transportation side, but also from the development and growth pressure side, of course, is the 301. It's been brought up by several people about consideration of that as an agricultural scenic byway, and giving it a designation, and what would that mean, and how that relates to some of the other things that might go along with that, of whether there's restricted development or other things in order to keep it that scenic way. So wanted to put that on the table because that is something that really hasn't been in the previous update. There are scenic byways that have been identified in the county, but that would be something that could be a potential item that comes out of this, or consideration as part of the update here. So we wanted to raise that for awareness to the commission, and any thoughts or comments on that as well.
Well, who or how makes that designation?
It's something that we'd have to work with the Maryland State Highway Administration, as well as I forget all the groups that are involved with it off the top of my head. Lauren, please chime in if you know more on that end of it. I'm used to her being here.
I'm just curious. I don't know the answer to it.
But
so
yeah,
I'm just
there
curious.
is a group that they look at it, they identify, a lot of it comes into the cultural historic side, gets pulled into it as well, and there's a group and there's a group through, I think it's the Regional Intermodal Planning Division at State Highway, that pulls that together and looks at that, working with the county and the other partners associated with it for those designations.
And then, is there any benefit, besides just on the face of it, obviously? Is there any benefit financially or?
There are opportunity for enhancement funds and other things that go along with it, depending on how it's designated. So if it's already designated as a byway, there are funding opportunities available with it that you can apply for, and it just raises your status above other projects that you're competing against that pool of money with.
Okay, thank you.
This is an issue that's very concerning with Farm Bureau, and we'll bring this up here. We are concerned about keeping it agriculture. They're divided. There want to be some growth. And I'm going to address this to our Planning Commission Director. We tried to reach out to you and put a meeting together to inform our members of what the comprehensive plan means to them today, how it affects them in the future, and what we need to look to change. That meeting was shut down in terms of being not effective or productive. What we tried to get it done was a group of farmers at our board of directors meeting and the soil conservation. So I'd like to explain how that would not be effective or productive to me, a simple farmer, to the Planning Commission, to 300 members of the Farm Bureau, and to the citizens concerned about agriculture in the county.
Sure. So I'm glad you brought that up. What you're referencing is the office was contacted, and in direct relation to the scenic byway comments that have been made at the visioning session, and there was specifically a statement that became is the subject of a petition that some members of the agricultural community are in favor of, and some are not. So Right now, there's a dialogue going on within the agricultural community itself. What staff's position was, and we were asked to come and give sort of a planning 101, comprehensive planning 101 meeting to both boards. And so we contemplated doing that and had established a date, but really upon reflection, the appropriate place for that dialogue to happen is at the special topic meeting. And then we also realized that we need to open up our technical committee meeting to both of those formal boards in addition to staff. So we really didn't mean that a meeting with the joint boards would not be productive. What would be more productive is to pull the boards into the actual comprehensive planning process, and for the individual boards and members of the community who sit on those boards to formalize your positions internally and then bring those positions to the comprehensive planning table. So really the outlet for that dialogue is already inherent in the schedule. And we decided that we would open the technical committee to those formalized boards as well, so that there would be two platforms.
Well, we could have that as there, but we'd like to have that as a meeting because I'll tell you, most of those farmers don't have internet or don't use a computer, don't want to, but they're an important voice in this county.
Well,
And we need to reach them, and we're asking, that's our point of asking for this. There's people on both sides out there telling the story. Well, what is the fact? The truth is usually somewhere in the middle, and that's what we're trying to get out there. So what does our comp plan do for us right now? What do we need to change? We need an education on that.
okay, certainly. And in fairness, staff reached out to a board member for the president of the Farm Bureau, and also reached out to staff with soil conservation to suggest that there's a more appropriate route, but we didn't get a response. So had we received a response that this was a top priority, and no, we really want this additional meeting for this educational purpose, we certainly would have responded to that, but we did not get that feedback. So just, I want you to realize that we weren't trying to sidestep either board or the issue. We thought we were channeling the issue into really a more empowering position.
I heard the message, not the way I interpreted it.
Okay.
So. But at
This
some point,
sounds like it goes well beyond the scenic byway designation. This is
Yes, it does.
inclusion of your
It does,
your
but-
constituents as a farmer.
But development on 301 is a big issue.
Absolutely, understood.
So,
Because of
that's the main
because of the
concern,
way
really.
the county is developed, yes.
And, but that's where we're looking for the truth. And we need some guidance in that.
Well, I think your voice was heard loud and clear. I heard,
Certainly,
and Ms.
yeah.
Moordock certainly has a history, not only in this county but in Kent, of being sensitive to rural, land uses, and I think you've got a very sympathetic ear.
Yeah.
And I have full faith and confidence in your group being engaged, and that's very encouraging because initially on in this process, I did not necessarily have that feeling. So I'm glad you're voicing that, and I have no doubt that Amy will respond.
We're at a tough time with this thing in the virtual because
Yeah.
farmers don't do virtual.
Right. And your time is slipping away, right? We're-
Yes. And that's the importance of getting this meeting now
Yeah,
so that we can get this out to other members.
because you're going to be out working
Across the
very
fence
shortly.
takes a long way to get
Yeah,
it there.
Right.
And, yeah, we really need to get on that to try to get the information out to the grassroots members.
Clearly, there was a misunderstanding because what staff and what Lauren and Ray and I discussed were really means to empower your voices, not to diminish them. So there
Yeah.
clearly was a miscommunication somewhere. So we'll
We
rectify
don't have a
it.
unified voice, and that's our thing. We're trying to do information right now, so we can make a simple, intelligent decision that,
We had gone out initially, when we initially started the comprehensive planning process, and the former director and I went out and spoke to a couple of groups and gave a planning 101. Here's what the comprehensive planning process will look like. And we did address the Soil Conservation Board, but as the transition happened, we never did get to the Farm Bureau. So we'll circle back around and repeat it with the Conservation Board, but also include.
But we could do that together, and
Yep.
that was the plan, what we were trying to do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. And I'm glad you brought it up.
Thank you.
Well, given the continuing capacity restrictions, and I understand a lot of your folks don't want to or don't have the capability or don't have the broadband width to do it, I mean, isn't there some possibility of putting some of your folks in a room or at a volunteer fire company and having sort of a hybrid situation?
Well, that's what I think we're intending to do.
Sure, okay. We'll work that out.
We have-
We hadn't really gotten that far, but
Our president has an airplane hangar, that's where we meet at, so there's plenty of room, we could do that and do the virtual with it.
And the Watermen did that at the volunteer fire company in Ken
Yeah.
Island. So they had somebody on a screen and a bunch of people in the room spaced out, so,
But like I say, most of us don't have internet service up there, so
right, understood?
I don't have the internet, so I don't have the knowledge to use what I do have,
I got you,
because I don't put it in practice that much,
gotcha.
and most farmers are in the same situation.
we're happy to reach back out to your president of
Yeah.
the Bureau.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Didn't mean to sidetrack you, but
This is good.
If I could interject back to respond to a prior question, this is Lauren again, just about the designation of the byway. The program is actually a program by the Federal Highway Administration, but it's locally administered by the state highway administration. And any designations, whether it's a scenic byway or an all-American road, those roadways have to possess at least one of a number of characteristics that are considered to be of national significance. And then to move further to an all-American road, you have to possess at least two of those qualities. So there's a list of those qualities, and there's a process to go about that designation, which I can follow up and provide some additional information to this board if you are interested.
Okay, moving forward on our list, I guess what we want to highlight, and this is something we heard particularly from the technical committee as well for the Planning Commission's awareness, is the frustration on the side of many of these projects have been identified as priority projects for the county, but not many have actually been able to move forward or get included within the Consolidated Transportation Program or others that are outside the county's control for some of these improvements or additional funding to cover the cost of those improvements. So that continues to be an issue, and that's something we're looking to, include within language to capture that and thing. I think specifically it came up, we have the new program from the TOR, and I don't think one of the projects made it on the list for the new program into this next year. So that frustration is something we want to make sure is acknowledged, and want to make sure you guys are aware that's one of the technical committee items that was raised there. On the reverse side of that, though, the next one is maybe there's an opportunity for some additional funding. Since the 2010 plan, the county itself is now part of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and serving on the BRTB, the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board. The world of acronyms we live in, it's always fun trying to remember them all, but through that effort with the BRTB, there are opportunities because the BMC itself gets a pool of federal funds and other things that could relate and carry to help implement some of these projects forward. And they can get allocated to some county-specific improvements versus being a Department of Transportation improvement. But we did want to emphasize that is limited right now with the way that's set up and the way to meet the criteria, because it doesn't necessarily cover the whole county. It covers part of the county with those opportunities. So just wanted to make that aware, but that is a big thing from the last update of the last plan. And opportunities, not only just within the plan, but for the county moving forward. We mentioned active transportation, and of course, this is a continued one that comes up, is that seasonal traffic, congestion, safety. I think from the discussion we've heard here, that adds into that battle of, or I shouldn't say battle, that discussion of how we address things, because we don't know what may come out of the other, but there are things we could be looking or identifying to move forward with regardless, or things that if something does, there may be on the books as what we're liking to see that could become funded for moving forward down the road. So you're not trying to figure it out at the time. You may have something in the hopper waiting to go forward.
Right, more forward thinking, right.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question? Well, first, the biking and walking along US 50, are they talking about people actually riding bikes or walking on the highway?
No, it's actually
Okay.
more within the corridor
Sure.
itself,
Okay.
yes, because it's not permitted right now within 50 right now as an access-controlled highway, so.
The second one is the seasonal traffic and congestion. I know that there have been some attempts, I'm not exactly sure what they are, from maybe the county talking, or the state talking to Ocean City about changing rentals, and I'm just wondering if there would be an interest in renewing those talks, particularly when there are people still working from home or working from wherever they are and will be continuing to work from wherever they are. Is there an interest in trying to reach out and try to figure out, since people might not be locked into weekends necessarily right now?
Because flexible work schedules and
Right.
working from home.
As long
and
as they have
that,
their
right.
tablet or iPad.
That's a good comment, thank you. And I know that's something we're all sort of trying to determine right now with what the, not only the short term, but what those mid and long term effects are going to be associated with the workforce and how that is adjusting given this. I mean, I'll speak to our firm in itself. You know, we've done polls within our firm among our offices, and you know, we're hearing we could have as many as 40 to 60% of the people who used to be in an office now working in a teleworking situation and not being in an office situation. And, you know, we're just one of many that are having that situation, and how that affects not only transportation, because your peak demand we're seeing on a national side is you're not having the peak demands, but you're seeing an increase in traffic across the board, because you're getting trips happening in the morning of, you know, somebody's willing to run out and go to the grocery store and do something in the morning, but they may work till 7 or 8 o'clock at night because they're at their house, versus coming into work at 8 o'clock in the morning and leaving at 4 and then doing all their activities in the evening. So you're seeing some of that distribution, and, you know, travel forecasting has always been a tool. It's never a given of how it's going to be. You do the best with the information you have, and I think that is something we want to at least have language and consideration of as this moves forward, as those knowns get to be more known. And then I have one more that wasn't on the list, but I made a note as, you know, we continue to look at this, but I wanted to put forward. But one of the other items that came up for consideration, just for awareness, was we talked a lot about the trail connectivity and the other pieces, but there is a piece that came up about adequate parking, electric vehicle stations, bicycle parking facilities, the elements that sort of go along with these parts of transportation that are often maybe not thought of, but they do affect what you all do, particularly as it works with the local development and redevelopment opportunities, is, you know, as retail areas are established, but because of this, or even commercial or recreational facilities, is, you know, some of the comments we heard are, is there an opportunity we could do a parking garage because people are parked all along the street instead of being able to be in one, and then when they're parked on the street, that's blocking how bikes can get there, and it has that residual effect. Or if I'm riding my bike, I don't have a place where I can park and lock it up safely. I'm putting it next to a telephone pole or something else. And so as you think about these facilities, how do we do that? And the other one I threw out there is, of course, with you can't turn the news on without another major auto dealer telling you they're going to be all electric by 2030. And what does that mean for charging station locations, other things that are going to be needed to support that side of transportation? So there's the network piece, but then, of course, there's the supporting parts there. So there's some things there we want to make sure some language gets in there of awareness and consideration. But also want to get your feedback and thoughts on that too, because they all have different ramifications moving forward.
I think it's worth noting, Ray, and thanks for adding that bullet, that staff, I think, in my tenure on this commission at least, has been very proactive in working with the development community to put in the sidewalks, to put in the bike racks, to put in bollards to keep vehicles off of what looks like might be an automobile access point, especially in places like Kent Narrows, where there's economic drivers and activity and resources and restaurants that people in surrounding communities, Graysonville, Chester, don't want to get in a car and drive to the Narrows waterway, right? They want to walk, ride, skip, jump, whatever. So I think that we have, at least in my opinion, have language in our code that allows the county to really push development to provide those amenities. Not that we can't go farther with that, but I think there already is momentum currently in-house, and if that needs enhancement, then so be it. That, again, is sort of your consulting role for us. But I think what's new to me, at least, is sort of the comments that I'm reading about extending to North County. And I want to, emphasize that this is a slow-moving train, and we have things in place. You don't just go out and pave in a road, or a trail. But that to me is an encouraging piece to put into this update. That let's give our colleagues and neighbors up in North County the opportunity to sort of think about where they may benefit from connectivity around their population centers or their public amenities. So as not to simply always defer to Kent Island and in those resources. So that may be another piece.
Can I make a point of personal privilege?
Please.
The biggest problem with being on a bike, which I am frequently, and you're trying to go from the 5th election district, well, it's trying to get from Graysonville to Queenstown. You're crossing 4 lanes of traffic from Main Street to where Rough Roofers has just finished their new building. And that's pretty hairy.
Yeah. And there's even a sign on Route 50 of a bicycle warning drivers that there may be a bike crossing those highways.
I've crossed it many times, and I don't want to say I'm taking my life in my own hands, but it'd be nice if there was something that you could avoid the traffic, so you can get from Graysonville to Queenstown. And then, of course, on the other side, to get from the outlets into Queenstown.
Right. And
301.
It may be worth pointing out to you, Ray, as you're taking notes, there were also conversations around something similar or analogous to what council was just describing at the Route 8 overpass. We were just speaking of the target, that development to downtown Stevensville. There, the county owns property on both sides. We're getting ready to redevelop, or at least maybe not the right word for it, as Amy probably just ground her teeth, revitalizing that particular development property. I think it's probably worth making a note in this plan about that as a priority, as one of the many. But there has been at least discussions internally, meaning inside the county boundaries, to connect the downtown Stevensville area to the properties south of 50, so that folks don't have to walk, bike, however, cross that overpass. the first one on the, coming off the bridge.
As a participant in the 10K and running across that bridge, I'm aware of what you mean there.
And this falls under, this is essentially Nancy Scazzari's as a park planner, right? She's at least been.
I think some of the area that I just mentioned is actually in the town of Queenstown, so it would have to be a joint effort with Queenstown.
With the municipality, right. Thank you, Ray. Sorry to interrupt.
No, Chris is the point, and that's why we're calling these workshops, so that we can have these discussions and get the information and try to incorporate the best we can into the update. So, and yeah, you make me think of these things even as you were bringing that up. The other side of that goes along with it is it's also come up about just opportunities to improve wayfinding and other things, so that people who may not be residents of the area or are visiting, since you do have a lot of a tourist population or even some seasonal residents, that they know where they can go, the safest way to go, versus figuring it out on their own, that there might be opportunities to improve some signage and wayfinding associated with that in support of those efforts from a safety as well as a economic development opportunity. So those are the main items that we wanted to put forward as part of the discussion that we were seeing coming out of the sessions and the conversations with the technical committee, as well as the visioning workshops and of course feedback we're getting through the website and social media. Are there any others that we didn't have listed here that the commission itself would like to raise or make us aware of?
I don't monopolize the microphone.
I would go back to my comment last month about the number of people that are responding, number of people hitting the website versus, what are the percentages. I noticed there were a significant number of people, almost half the respondents that attended the on-site web, discussions were from not in the county. They were outside the county. Again, I don't know what the magic button is to get more residents responding, whether through community associations or whatever it might be, to be making their comments. It shouldn't be coming from so many people that are not residents of Queen Anne's County, because typically they're developers or people who don't have a dog in the fight in this situation to be sure that we address and protect.
I agree with that. At least half of them are from various special interest groups.
Well, and also, there may be a percentage of those attendees, commenters, that have a second residence here, right? They may be from Salisbury, as some of the.
They may be, but the question on the questionnaire is, are you a resident of Queen Anne's County? I mean, if they have a second home, they're a resident. They shouldn't be answering it as being somewhere else. I'm pointing out to the fact that I don't want to find this as skewed to the opinions of people that don't, really have an interest in where we are.
I noticed the same thing.
Yeah. And then there's even some unknowns. People don't know where
they live. So.
Commissioners, just real quick, Nancy Scazzari is actually in the Zoom.
Okay.
And she made a comment in the chat that there has been a study underway looking at both working with Queenstown and studying overpass possibilities.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Yeah,
Nancy.
maybe I won't die going over that road.
Do we have a number of people that have actually participated in all these workshops? What percentage of the population have we actually participated?
Well, there's a chart.
Yeah,
There's a chart on the report.
We have the chart in the report with the numbers, and we could.
Well, I just asked if you got a total.
Yeah, let me go back to see if I have that here. It might be in the.
This is the one here.
Regardless, I mean,
don't
I know
think we
we're in a
should be
bad
terrible- I
situation.
don't think we should be terribly surprised that the
Yeah.
people that come to these sort of meetings involving comp plans have a particular special interest, because For most folks, this stuff is pretty dry.
Yeah, within the attachments that we provided you, attachment A has the visioning workshop summary, attachment B has the special topic workshop summary, and there's a table. And one of our first questions we have there, of course, is where do you live? And also how long you lived or worked in the county. So try to capture those that may just be working but not living in the county that are participating. So you can see the numbers there. I will say some of the no answer, just to help the, here, you may see 13 as no answer. A lot of that can be, a handful of that staff and stuff that are participating, and we're not answering the questions. So that's why you don't see. So like Lauren and myself are logged in, but we wouldn't be shown as giving an answer because we're not, we're not going to bias each opinion since we're there at every meeting. No.
Well, and there are also,
right,
Ray, there are also people that phone in.
And there's people that phone in that don't
physically
have the
cannot
internet.
answer the question.
Right, that don't have the ability to do the poll, but we are getting their comments through the chat. And that's what I think has been helpful in a lot of this too, when you see the backup to this of, we try to give you directly as we can those comments that you're seeing in the chat unfiltered and stuff so that you're seeing how they're actually responding. We're not trying to put words in people's mouths. We want it to be as accurate to what they're giving us so you see that direct feedback.
Well, there's no question, the pandemic has limited the ability for people to attend. And as Tom referenced earlier, band access is not consistent. I mean, I don't even have consistency on, on Kent Island. So even when you have it, you don't have it. But again, my concern, which I've voiced each and one of these meetings, is making sure that this doesn't get skewed in a direction that is not truly reflective of the residents. And then you have a different, outcome than what the people are going to come back and say, well, why didn't you think about this? Why didn't you think about that? So.
Thank you. And that's definitely something we will continue to work throughout the process and also through our work with the technical committee so that they're giving what they're hearing from their level as well as the comments we're getting from you today to help to filter through some of that as well. So appreciate that.
And Ray, just to add on to that, we are constantly adding to our list of contacts that we are incorporating into our outreach. So certainly if there are any specific people or groups that you would like us to make sure that we've added or are getting these resources outside of any of the press releases or county postings about these different opportunities or information that goes out to social media, we'd be more than welcome to add to that list to make sure that we are reaching out to those groups that that you think may not be getting these messages.
Is there any way we can add proactively rather than at the request of a citizen, or in this point I'm trying to make here, not so eloquently, but as typical thinking on the fly here, can we simply add county staff, right, their work addresses, so that the people that are working for the county that are in the weeds in these things, even though they didn't request and sign up for it, are we ethically able to simply add all county work addresses to the distribution list and cast a slightly wider net that maybe somebody in a building downtown or up county that may not be as engaged in this, but all of a sudden they get an email that says, by the way, your employer is going through this process. Share with your church members, your volleyball friend, whatever. Without getting in trouble by, again,
Nothing wrong with that.
Many of the county staff, a lot of the folks I know in this room don't live in the county, and that's, but at least they can, I don't know, to Art's piece, that I don't know if they would be considered skewing the opinion, but if nothing else, they at least have been notified. The egg on the face of the county would be that same person I just referenced in that office building looks unintelligent when somebody says, did you know we're going through a comprehensive plan? How do you not know that? You're on the county payroll. It just may be another opportunity to outreach.
Yeah, no, we can work with Amy and Stephanie and that, and what opportunities there might be to do even if it's just an internal e-blast to make them aware, direct them to the site, and hopefully they can sign up at a minimum and encourage their involvement or
They may not join a
spreading the news. I
webinar
mean,
or
we
a
always-
workshop, but maybe they'll answer a
Yeah.
question of the day for you. Maybe they'll submit comments that's like, oh,
We end every one of the visiting sessions and the special of encouraging them to reach out to people in your community, get them to, there's so much we can do. And I think we will have to, I can't commit to anything here, but it's something we do need to think about too, as if these restrictions start loosening up some, what do we need or want to do in order to get some more of that as we're going through this as well. That's always been in the back of our mind of what might be out there. And just like came up today, discussions with the Farm Bureau and others, those are things we're always going to be working with you all on to see what we can do to get our best voice out there. But also on the counter, that sometimes, as you know, in some of these processes, it seems like no matter how much you do, you always get the same group of people most of the time and try to get others.
well, we're accustomed to seeing that. We see the same groups that come in, and as Counselor said, some of it's dry, and other we're conducting business during normal operational hours when our colleagues and neighbors are out working.
And the chambers of commerce, as an example, are not even represented as attending. The chambers ought to be a part of this discussion. And presidents of community associations, Gibson's Grant has a president that should be on this list, should be attending, and we need to be sure they know about this. So, okay.
I just want to give you some level of comfort is in that in going through many comprehensive plan updates, this is the conversation that is always had. And making sure that we get in touch with absolutely everyone who should be represented is always a challenge. And there's always a criticism later that someone was missed. But I will say that, and it might be as a result of the pandemic, we are getting really good attendance and probably more attendance than we would normally get for in-person visioning sessions of this nature, because and some of them are repeat attendees, but the truth is our engagement, the percentages of our engagement is actually very good for this update, because as Chris mentioned, this topic, well, I don't find it the least bit dry, tends to be tends to be a little dry for the but it is hard to get people engaged in this process and to see its value, even though it is very valuable and not boring at all. But we are actually doing well, so I don't want you to feel as though we're not getting good responses, and there are always skewed responses, because often people who are paying attention and come to the table have very passionate positions on issues. So I sort of wanted just to add that to the mix, to don't despair. We're actually doing pretty well.
And what I like to highlight on that is I think the diversity of the comments we've gotten is more reflective than what we traditionally get when we're having in-person workshops. Because a lot of times when you're having an in-person, you get a group that gets into one area and it's very hard, or people may not give their opinion on other areas because they hear a group talking about one. And we have really gotten a range of people saying, I know this may not be a popular topic, but they throw in the chat, what they want to say, where they may not say it in a public setting where they're in person with you.
Totally agree.
Or you're trying to capture it while you're talking to somebody and you're hopefully, they may not put it down in writing. Well, we're getting a lot more in writing than we normally would get in a process. And the other thing I wanted to add to it, which I actually find very encouraging with the group that's been participating. Amy mentions how there are a few repeat people, but the way we've been structuring them with these special topics, we've actually had groups that, are very strong on this side because that's their special interest. But within the special topics, they've really given the input on, as a resident, I feel this for this topic. It doesn't affect what my opinion is for whatever this organization I'm in, but as a resident, I'm saying this, and they've given diverse, it's not the same repeat comment that sometimes you get. They've actually focused on what the special topic, and I found that very encouraging in these meetings. So with that, I'm going to jump to the end here, just to give you an update. And Lauren, you can add anything. I'm still not used to her not being beside me here. But we do have the special topic workshop upcoming for housing, as well as economic development and tourism and town planning here in March and early April. Of course, we have our upcoming workshops and moving forward with that. Our next chapters in April will be looking at the housing, historic and cultural resources side, and then the economic development and tourism after that in May. We did want to bring up for the commission is one of the chapters we talked about presenting now would have been the environmental chapter. There is a lot of work going on internally with the county, as well as the work we're doing for updating some of the GIS resources and information, particularly on the water resources side. And that's getting to the point where it's a new update now versus us having to use data that was a couple years old. So we really want to be bringing the most up-to-date information into the data and information there. So we're looking to push that back and do that as a special session in between one of these with the commission here, so that we have the up-to-date data. And we don't want to get out in front of the public, because we're keeping this, all these chapters that we're giving you as drafts are available on the website for the public to see as well. And we had that concern of multiple versions getting out there, so somebody sees an old version and then the new version with the updated data comes forward. And, somebody makes a comment off of something and it's really not accurate because it's now the new data. So that's the one reason for the change with that environmental chapter, and making sure we're getting the most up-to-date input for that feedback and input. But particularly because of, like I said, it pulls in a lot of the water resources stuff as well as the other environmental features in the county.
Thank you for answering my question without me having to ask it.
And with that, we'll open it up to any other. Yep. Sorry, Lauren.
Sorry, I just wanted to note that the date that we discussed with the county to hold that revised meeting would be on June 24th. So that would be before our discussion on the land use chapter. So this will be one of the later chapters that we discuss. Director Ray's point, to be able to incorporate all of that information, as well as how it impacts the future land use discussions.
Since all the members aren't here today, I'll send out an email so that all of you can, say that you can attend or know that.
And you envision this being, obviously it's not on a date that we have a normal meeting, so it would be a Zoom meeting or some virtual update process.
We have scheduled this room for that day at 8:40. Well,
Oh.
it'll be at 8:45 a.m.
Right, but it's not a traditional monthly meeting date.
Right, yeah, the
Okay.
QACTV will be able to be here and broadcast the
We
meeting.
can pretend
and
it
we'll
is, but
advertise it.
may have the feel of it, but not an official meeting. I
And
see.
it would just be for us for that topic.
To
and
do
talk about
this.
It wouldn't be like it would be open for other business.
Got it. Yeah.
In that format.
Okay.
And I'll close with I continue to encourage from the commission as well, any comments or additional feedback from even the previous chapters that we have provided. And as you're seeing more information, please feel free to submit that to the county team, and we'll make sure that we're continuing to work on having these as up to date and capturing as much as we can from all the input. And that concludes our part of the presentation.
Very much. Amy, Ms. Mordock, you were finished with your presentation to the council. Thank you much. John, Bruce, do we have any public comments? Or let's start with, no, anybody sign up to be in person? No. Okay, Bruce?
We do have some public comments. We also have people in the room that haven't acknowledged if they want to make public comment. So Jody, if you're there and you would like to speak, could you at least turn on your camera for us? And I don't know if Nancy wanted to add anything, but if she could turn on her camera if she wanted to. But we're going to head to Scott McGlashan, who has signed up. So I'm going to ask you to unmute Scott, and then you may begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Scott McGlashan up in Churchill, Maryland. Live on our family farm up here. Basically, I know Tom Lee, Kathy Gillis, Tom Jackson. I haven't had the pleasure to meet the other gentleman, Mr. Eversberger, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But the one thing there that's kind of interesting is Mr. Eversberger, the concern is who is participating in getting the public participation. And basically, what I have done, and Howard Dean, another farmer up in Churchill, Howard, I participated in the workshops, quite a few of those. Howard saw my name picture, I guess, there, and he and I have gotten together, and we have crafted it, and it was referred to as a petition. It's not a petition, it's a vision statement that we are circulating through agriculture, the agriculture community. We've got over 100 names. Frankly, I've been out, Kathy Doos, appreciate this. Like politics, I've been out visiting farmers on the farm, because I was involved in agribusiness for 28 years and 24 years is for 40. But it's interesting to go out and talk to the farmers. I am a member of Farm Bureau. Tom Jackson made some good points there. I met with Farm Bureau. Frankly, I was a little, it was interesting. I think the least of nothing else, the Farm Bureau is talking. I am a member of the Queens County Soil Conservation, an associate member, and they are very interested in this subject matter. The reason that Howard and I got involved, my dad was a commissioner back in 1990, and I guess, I don't know if it was the zoning ordinance or the comp plan, but we tried to get, or he tried to, Marion Levin and other farmers tried to get farmers to meet and to discuss this situation, what was going on, like the comp plan that we're doing right now. Problem is, and as Tom Jackson pointed out, farmers, I love farmers. You know, we operate a farm up here. I have a farm operating. But farmers are great, but trying to get them to a meeting and get involved is tough. It's damn tough. Last time I knew, when they went through this, they wouldn't participate about the 23rd and a half hour, and then they found out what was going on, they panicked. Well, that's too late. It's just too damn late. And so we're circulating this. It's not a petition, it's a vision statement. Basically, the reason I wanted to come on today, I thought this was another workshop, but I'm glad to listen to the Planning Commission on transportation. Just last night, I was in over in Southerville, and I came across, and there was a terrible bad accident up on 301 last night. My point being is part of our vision statement, we, not unlike Route 213, we'd like to see, many people would like to see Route 301 corridor as designated as a scenic byway. At the Farm Bureau meeting, I was kind of interested. There was some statement made about a truck stop or a convenience store or something out on 301, the need for that. If there was I question the need for it, that it's something that Wallace, Montgomery ought to look at maybe. But if that be the case, I would think it's got to be somewhere where there's an overpass. The thing that kind of is very discouraging, this is that the accident last night was at Route 19. And for those of you that cross over 301 up and down, some gentleman made a statement about the possibility of increased traffic on 301. Now, the traffic has increased on 301. We look at what happened in Middletown, or what is visiting in Middletown, is coming down through the Bay Bridge. So, the unfortunate thing is that it took Art Cutler's daughter to be killed up at Millington to get that overpass evidently done. Centerville, Route 213, the number of people that were killed out there, we do have an overpass there. The same way with the Circus Restaurant, Lewisburg Center. So Dr. Rice's son getting killed out there, they pushed that a little fast. So if you're gonna have something to support, something like a truck stop, or even a convenience store, it can't be the grade going down 301. So basically that's what I wanted to discuss today. I'm glad to see you had such competent legal counsel on the planning commission. I'm very well. But that's basically what I wanted to say. I have participated in all these workshops, not all of them, but most of them. And but I appreciate the fact that the Planning Commission recognizes that it's hard to get people to come out and participate. That's why we started this vision statement, basically, because I want to go. I've been on the farm. I'm going right on the farm, and I'm used to that. I love talking to farmers, love farmers, and if they're getting ready, as I am, being retired now, if weather breaks, I'm going to be out in Mason's Heritage learning a tractor, and I'm not going to have time to go to a workshop, and that's what farmers face with, and Tom Jackson aptly pointed out. So that, I'll stop right there. If you have questions, I'll let the one thing I would say, though, we're collecting these vision statements, and the reason we're doing this is because while it's not Montgomery, I don't know those folks. I've listened to those people, and they're doing a great job, but they don't know Queen Anne County, and Howard and I said, we better have something to give to these people so they know who they're dealing with. A. B. I wanted to go to the Planning Commission, because I know a lot of them in the Planning Commission. You know your county, but maybe don't know agriculture. And ultimately, it goes to the county commissioners. And county commissioners, it's so exasperating not to be able to get citizen participation until the 23rd hour. That's not acceptable. I thank you very much. I'm finished.
Thank you, Mr. McGlashan, and appreciate your enthusiasm in retirement. And I would encourage you to continue your work with the community, Mr. Jackson and Ms. Mordock, moving forward, and greatly appreciate your engagement to this point.
Almost didn't recognize you with that goatee.
I want to be like Mr. Drummond. I've always envied Mr. Drummond.
There's our park planning director out in nature.
Yep, and we can hear you, Nancy.
Hi, good morning, commissioners. Yeah, out on a job site, but just want to say how greatly encouraged I am by all the support and the comments that I've seen on multiple visioning sessions about trails and connectivity, and sort of making the distinction between recreation and connectivity, which is very real, and the fact that we need both to connect our town centers and provide recreation. They can serve the same purpose, but just that support is wonderful, and I'm hoping that noise gets as high as the state level to help us with funding in the more rural communities where there aren't as many grant opportunities or opportunities in general to provide such infrastructure here on the shore. That said, National Scenic Byway Program and All American Roads, which actually portions of 213 was just designated as an All American Road, which is kind of a big deal in that realm. But that is also, and Tom alluded, as did Amy, these overlapping conversations. That's a really good conversation to have in the historic and preservation workshop that's upcoming. And the consultant I know is pretty keen on those designations and knows a lot about it. But with that designation needs to come teeth to hold development and scenic views at bay, or keep them so that they're part of the development process. Simply the designation won't protect those view sheds. So I just wanted to say that, because we do have Route 18 as a Chesapeake Country Scenic Byway, and also 213, which, like I said, just got the All-American Road designation. So I think that's a wonderful proposal. We just have to make sure we've got the teeth to enforce those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And if I may, Ray, while it's on my tip of my head here, Nancy brought up a point about these these sort of overlapping or intersecting commentaries. And one that also, I think, along the line of Nancy's point is back when the federal facility was proposed in Rootsburg, a lot of the sort of the concerns there were the night sky, right? There is not a lot of development there, and it's very important to that portion of the county to maintain that view shed, right? Not just pictures of the water or a mountain in the background that we don't have, but the night sky, keep it dark. And that was a very unique, I think, piece that wasn't previously talked about in the county, is protecting that the light pollution that comes from this, would have come from this proposed facility, amongst others. So I think that's another piece that we perhaps should have on our checklist. Bruce, sorry.
Yeah, the only person left in our room is Jody, and I gave you the ability to unmute Jody just in case your video isn't working. But we've asked a couple times, but that's all we have.
Okay. Count to 10 if Jody wakes up. We'll certainly take your public comment. Otherwise, Mr. or Mrs. Jody, you're welcome to submit written comments to the Planning Commission at your choosing. Any other questions for Wallace Montgomery while they are attentive from the commission? Anything else from staff? Going once, going twice.
I'll encourage, if they have more, feel free to log into the website, and we have the public input section there, and continue to get the feedback through that as well.
Great. Thank you for your continued communications and clarifications and foresight, and we look forward to walking down this road with you, or this connected pathway trail with you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.